And I remember when I'd go into the room she was working in and I'd say, Mama, can you help me with this? And then I'd stop and I went, excuse me, Mrs. Bushong, could you help me with this, please? My mother, I called her my mama, and I shouldn't have. It should have been her official name, Mrs. Bushong. So I had to be careful that every time I went somewhere, other patients would hear, you're calling her mama? Well, yeah, because she is my mother.
So welcome back, everyone. We have a very enjoyable episode lined up for you today. We have San Ramon's former mayor, Pat Boom, officially known as Patricia Boom, joining us today. Welcome, Pat.
Thank you.
How have you been feeling since the shelter-in-place mandate went into effect?
You know, I said I can finally not go to meetings, not go to events, not run the gift shop at Forest Home Farms. I can spend time at my house and my garden. And I have been. I'm finding out things that I didn't know about it. I haven't had time to work at my house and do projects. And I love completing projects in my house. Haven't been able to do that. All of a sudden, I've got zucchini growing and heritage tomato, and my peonies are blooming and my irises are blooming, and I am aware of it. I'm out there looking at them. It's wonderful.
So you feel this can be a part of your new lifestyle, even if we are allowed to go and run free?
That's right. I'm fortunate. I'm very fortunate to have a lovely backyard that is large, and it has paved pathways. So if we want to go for a walk, we walk about 6 or 7 times around the paved pathways. Over the bridge and down and up the hill, and then it's a flat around the vegetable gardens, and then you go around the pool and back down and across the bridge again. And so it's a nice walk, and you still get your exercise and you're outside. It's beautiful.
So you said you're growing vegetables. Are you seeing some vegetables grow that you never imagined you were able to grow in that part of the town?
No. In fact, I'm a lot less. First of all, you have to weed the planters. And I've been able to weed the planters, but I have 4 of them, 2 very small ones. I got those done and put a tomato in one and a zucchini in another. And then there's a big, large rectangular one that I got weeded, but I haven't planted anything. And then there's a gigantic one that I'm still working on weeding. That may take me another month.
Well, you have, looks like you found your passion and you're enjoying it. For me, the highlight of the weekdays has been rolling out the garbage cart and bringing it back in. With the allergies, it's like you can't be out there.
Where you can walk outside.
Yes, and I'm glad you're enjoying it. So a little census message for those of you who have not filled out your census questionnaire yet. Please pause this. You have. Well, congratulations and thank you.
As my husband and I both did it.
Oh, perfect. Thank you. We love early responders. So please pause this video, go fill out the census form, and then come back to listen to everything Pat is going to share. But please, the census takers cannot go door to door anytime soon. So we want to make sure our numbers are up when responding to the census. So thank you. So
I have to tell you how easy it is to do. So it's quick and easy, and people need to do it right away.
Thank you. Could you add to that message why they need to do right away? Why is it so important for our city?
The cities, counties, and the state gets funding for the number of people that are counted. If you don't count yourself, you are then keeping money from coming back to you in benefits and services. So count yourself by going on the census. That ensures that money is going to come back to your city, your county, and your state, and you are going to get the services that you deserve. But if you don't count yourself on the census, then you reduce the amount of money that's coming back, and you're not going to get your services.
Thank you. That was very well put together. So I appreciate that message.
You're
So
welcome.
let's get to your life. I mean, you've over the years worn many, many hats. It must be exhausting to do so many things, multitask and be great at it. But before you put on those hats, you had to train yourself. So take us back to your childhood, to where you grew up, how your background impacted who you are today or what you accomplished in your life.
Well, many people, when they're born and raised, they stay in the same area and they have family nearby. I'm a Navy brat. My father was in the Navy in World War II, and he retired after 30 years in the Navy as a commander. We moved mostly from, I was born in Virginia, Norfolk, Virginia, but I was too young. At 2 years, they moved to San Diego. I lived a lot of my life in San Diego, and then we were transferred to Quantico, Virginia. And then I was transferred with my family and my dad to London, England. And I was fortunate to be able to live in London for 3 years. And I went to a military high school there. It was an Air Force high school, Air Force base, Bushy Park High School. And I graduated from high school there. And then I still had 1 more year in London with my folks. And I stayed and went to Harrow Technical College and pre-nursing course there. This was an English technical college. I learned more in that first year than I did in my first year back here in nursing. And I did a nursing program back at Paradise Valley School of Nursing in National City, which is near San Diego. I had a 3-year diploma program. They do not do that anymore. They have a 2-year associate degree or a 4-year BS degree in nursing. I have a full nursing registration. I am a registered nurse, but it was a 3-year diploma program. And I thought it was marvelous because we learned how to do things and then we went on the floor and did them. And so it was hands-on almost immediately. And it was wonderful information and experience.
So is that the reason you said that you learned way more in London because you had the more hands-on experience? Or?
Well, it was basics. It really was not working with patients. It was anatomy and physiology. It was nutrition. What else? Can't even think of all of it. But it was very much on the English level. I learned how to do cookery in England.
I was going to ask you that. Did you learn any of the British?
It was most interesting because their measurements are a little bit different than ours. They didn't have, this was back in 1959, 60, and 61. They didn't have refrigerators. If they did, they were little tiny bar refrigerators that we see now. They had the marble slab in the pantry. That kept things cool. They shopped every day. They'd go out and get to the butcher to get their meat. They went to the greengrocer. They went to the bakery. They got everything they needed for that meal. And they came back for that night, for that meal or that day. They did not shop like we do for weeks on end and put them in the freezer. I remember when we moved, we brought our large upper freezer like we have normally in refrigerators in the same size that we have here in this country. And the neighbors used to come in and look at it because they'd never seen anything so large and so amazing and how much you could store in the freezer. Oh, it was fantastic. And it was normal for us. So we had quite an experience. And my experience with nursing was anatomy and physiology. And we had to draw the organs, every organ in the body. And I am not an artist. And we had to talk about its function, where it was located, its function, and anything it produced and how it affected the body. And that was a wonderful learning experience.
That's a lot of organs you had to, the only thing I know is skin is the largest organ, and I think it's getting bigger with the shelter in place. That's my knowledge, basic knowledge. So I wouldn't have. How did you decide nursing? What was the calling? I mean, you have to have a calling for any of these healing professions, doctor, nurse.
My mother was a nurse.
So that's what
She
made you.
actually went through nurses training and met my dad. She graduated, but when she graduated, she had contracted tuberculosis from working in the hospital with patients with tuberculosis. She ended up for 2 years being in a hospital, and my dad and her wanted to get married, and the doctor said, no, you can't get married until she's cured. And they waited an extra 2 years before they could get married, because the doctor then released her from the hospital, and then she did not work again. It was 3 years later when I was born. So she didn't work after that, because I think it's still recovering. She only had the use of one lung. And so from the tuberculosis. Anyway, when I went through nurses training, she went back for retraining, and we ended up working in the same hospital. And I remember when I'd go into the room she was working in, and I'd say, Mama, can you help me with this? And then I'd stop and I went, oh, excuse me, Mrs. Bushong, could you help me with this, please? My mother, I called her my mama, and I shouldn't have. It should have been her official name, Mrs. Bushong. So I had to be careful. Every time I went somewhere, other patients would hear, you're calling her mama? Well, yeah, because she is my mother. So I had to change that. But she was a nurse. So from the time I was 8 years old, I wanted to be a nurse. I can't explain why. I always wanted to.
It was a part of your existence, I guess, and you were not afraid of needles. That's one thing that I'm deathly afraid of. So,
needles, anything, it doesn't bother me. I take care of people and clean things up, and it doesn't bother me.
So I have to ask you, as you were going through this nursing program in England here, did you pick up the British accent?
Oh,
at all? Would you do it for us if you have?
So bad. I remember coming back on the ship, and we were in the dormitory. The kids were older kids were in a dormitory on this ship, and they said, "Oh, are you English?" And I went, "No, I'm an American." Well, you sure sound English.
Oh.
I acquire it so quickly, and I don't even know I do it.
Do you do it now? You don't even know if you do it now.
No, it's when I'm exposed to it and I listen to it, and then I respond that way, and all of a sudden I'm speaking with an English accent. So no, I introduce it.
So you finish your graduation, and you didn't talk about your favorite dish from England or London that you picked up.
Oh dear.
Do you cook it now?
Then their cuisine left a lot to be desired back in 59, 60, and 61. They have improved their cuisine immensely because they have brought in otherworldly cuisines from other countries and expanded. I think the best food you could ever get in England was in a pub. Pub food probably was the best food.
Isn't that fish and chips?
Well, fish and chips were very good. There was no question, but there was a whole variety of things in the pubs, and I can't remember them. But I have to tell you, the food in England didn't really stand out for my memory much.
I can see that. Yes, it is supposed to be bland, and you have to add elements to make it palatable. I agree with you that using the approach of incorporating world cuisine, world cultures has really helped tremendously.
Yeah, yeah.
So let's talk about the next part of your life. So you finish your college and you start working.
Yes, and I met my husband, who was in the Navy, and we started dating and became engaged. And I still had to finish nurses training, and I wanted to get married in December, but wasn't going to graduate until June. And my dad looked at me and said, I'm paying for your nurses training. I'm not going to pay for a wedding and still pay for nurses training. You can get married now if you want in December, but I'm not going to pay for it. But if you wait until after you graduate, I'll pay for your wedding. So of course I waited until October, because my husband then was on a cruise to the Far East. He got back 10 days before we got married. And so he said it was the easiest wedding he'd ever gone through, because he didn't have to do anything.
Did you have a lot of wedding guests?
Several, yeah, we did. We had a wedding planned. It was all planned. And what I found interesting, my husband was Catholic, his mother was Catholic, but his father wasn't. I am not Catholic, none of my family is. So my mom said I should be married in the Presbyterian church, and his mom said we should be married in the Catholic church. And my husband and I looked at each other and said, how are we going to satisfy the mothers? Do you know what he said? Why don't we have a military wedding on the base in the chapel? I'll wear my uniform, and we will have sword bearers, and they will all be in uniform. And as soon as he said that, both mothers thought that was a wonderful idea. We satisfied everyone.
It was a very patriotic setup. So
yeah,
very
really
well done. So did
yeah.
you get married here in California?
Yes, we got married in the island, the base chapel on Coronado Island. He was stationed in Coronado. He was flying out of the base there. And he was he flew out of an aircraft carrier. He was on the Bennington, USS Bennington, which is no longer in existence now. And that would leave on cruises from North Island or Coronado area and come back there. And so he flew off that aircraft carrier.
I was going to ask you if you revisited, but there's no point. You just answered that question.
Okay.
So when did you decide you wanted to, when you obviously you thought of settling down, when did you decide we have to look at a city to settle down in, and why San Ramon?
He was in the Navy. After 5 years, he got out and he went with the airlines. And he went with United Airlines. We had training in Colorado. And then they went by age. The oldest in the class would get the choice of the domiciles that were available in the country. Well, my husband was a little bit older than the others, so we thought, oh, that'll be nice. This was the oldest class United had ever taught, and he was 15th in the class. So we thought, uh-oh. He said, okay, we have Washington, D.C., Newark, New Jersey, Chicago, and San Francisco. And most of the people in the class were from back east, and they wanted all those domiciles back east. And Fred and I looked at each other and went, San Francisco. And we've been here ever since. And we lived in San Mateo and had our first child, Matt, and rented a house and then bought a house. And we were living in the peninsula in San Mateo, and we decided, you know, it's very busy. There was a lot of traffic. It was very convenient for Fred to go to the airport, but it was a lot of traffic. So we have other United and Navy friends in Walnut Creek. So we went to visit them, and we were telling them how we're unhappy and we really want to move, but we didn't know where. We just wanted to get out of the peninsula. She said, there are houses being built all down at 680. She said, I know of one in San Ramon. Why don't you go down and look? We didn't look anywhere else. We went down, came to San Ramon in the Twin Creeks area. They had houses for sale. And he said, we have an area here that's going to open up within a week. And I could look over the back fence of the model house. And I pointed and I said, I want that lot. We came back a week later Every lot along the creek had been sold except the one I wanted. So we bought it.
And that's the lot, that's this lot where the zucchinis are growing in full glory now.
We are the original owners, and we've been in the house for 48 years.
Wow, that's a lot of history with that house.
Yes, we had 2 boys when we moved here, and we had our daughter here. And when I mentioned sometime, I said, you know, this house is getting pretty big. At some point, we're probably going to have to sell. Oh, you can't do that. Oh, it's our house. We grew up in it. You can't do that. I said, it's in the trust. If you want it, you have to buy it. Oh.
So I have to ask you about, you moved here decades back, obviously San Ramon Valley, very agricultural, rural setup. You were okay with that. You knew there was going to be no nightlife to talk about.
Well, we're raising children. We didn't really need what is called a nightlife. Okay. We were totally exhausted after 3 kids, you know. We're going to bed. They're in bed. Okay, that's it. We're done. We did go out. We went to Walnut Creek. We went into San Francisco. We didn't feel like we were missing anything because we didn't have it. We just didn't think we were missing. I will say, when we moved in, there was not a grocery store in San Ramon. I had to go to Danville off of Diablo Road to the grocery store there. The dentist was in Danville. Our oldest went to kindergarten in Alamo because Norris Canyon was the cutoff for the school boundary line. Everything south of Norris Canyon went to all the schools in San Ramon, and those north of Norris Canyon went to schools in Danville. So kids went to Los Cerros Middle School and San Ramon Valley High School. That's changed. Now, the whole boundary of San Ramon, everything in San Ramon goes to San Ramon schools.
Correct. And talking about the grocery store, do you recall the name of the grocery store in Danville?
Lucky's.
Oh, is it the same one? The one that's on?
No, on Diablo Road. If you come off the freeway onto Diablo Road, that's where Lucky's was. Now it's Smart and Final.
Correct. Oh, okay. So what else was there? So how would, if you were to step out of your house decades back, more than 40 years back, what would San Ramon have looked like? Or how many homes were there? What roads were there?
There weren't a lot. Most of southern part of San Ramon had houses that were built in the 60s. So there's a lot of development that occurred down there. The development up in the Twin Creeks area, that wasn't completed yet. So there was still a lot of housing being built. Even in our area, there were only 2 houses, our house and then another house down on Shadow Mountain Court that 2 people were living in, and there was still construction. And I remember things were really a mess. And one winter, I heard my oldest son, Matt, he was probably about 6, yelling, "Mom, Mom, help." And I opened the front door, and he was stuck in the mud in the front yard that had not been done yet. And I pulled him out and left his boots in the mud. So we had our experiences with housing development. Crow Canyon Road did not go through. Costa did not go through. And San Ramon Valley Boulevard was a 2-lane road.
When you say did not go through, you mean it was cut off somewhere or didn't even exist?
It went across the freeway and it ended on the other side.
Okay, got it.
No shopping centers. There were no grocery stores. Then I remember when Crow Canyon finally was built and went all the way through to Blackhawk. At one point, and this was many years later, we had to close, the city had to close Crow Canyon Road, and they had to make a dirt barrier across so that the tractors could get back and forth to do some work. So that was closed for almost 3 weeks, I think. Oh my goodness, you should have heard the noise. we can't get into San Ramon to shop. Why are you doing this to us? You have to open the road. And I went, they shop in San Ramon. That's wonderful. So yes, when we opened the road, everybody was happy and they came and shopped in San Ramon. So that was good.
Well, that's an interesting story. We would never have known if you had not described it so well. So there were many walnut orchards, pear orchards, Bartlett pears. Did you have any, I know the Dean Lesher for Arts, it was called a nut house, which is politically very incorrect now. Do you recall anything?
It was the Diamond Walnut Factory. And so that's, they call it the nut house. It was the Diamond Walnut Factory. The Boones, who lived in San Ramon, which is where Forest Home Farms is right now, just south of Pine Valley, they did not have their own walnut trees. What they did was they contracted out to harvest walnuts for other people. They bagged them, brought them in, hulled them, dried them, and rebagged them, and then drove them up to Walnut Creek, to the Diamond Walnut Factory in the place. Its location was where the Regional Center of the Arts is right now. Mm-hmm. And I remember when the old Diamond Walnut Factory was there, and it ceased to be a walnut factory, but they made it into an event center where they had music and theater, and it was fairly primitive, but they were able to bring a lot of people together and actually use that as a music event. And then that was torn down and the Regional Center of the Arts was built.
And is that how Walnut Creek got its name, because of the walnuts?
I don't know. I think you're going to have to ask those from Walnut Creek. I'm really not sure exactly how Walnut Creek got its name, but it's been in existence. Walnut Creek has been more than 150 years, so it's been there a very long time.
Long history. So you had several roles after that as you became more active in the community, chair of the planning committee. It was called a planning committee, but you educated yourself in every aspect of planning, understanding. You also were a part of the county sign ordinance, and I read a very interesting tidbit on how you were photographing with another person who's free, was your partner and known in the community that you were doing that. I'm assuming you were continuing your work, your career as a nurse, or was that on the side and you started focusing?
I haven't gone back to work.
You have not? Okay.
No, not since I worked after I graduated, and then we moved. We moved to Colorado, we moved up to San Francisco, we moved over here to Twin Creeks. No, I have not worked as a nurse, but I will tell you, everything I learned in nursing, I use in working with people, and it's made a difference.
How so? How would you, in an example?
You have empathy, you understand a little more what they're going through. If they respond in a manner, you look at it more closely. Well, why are they acting that way? They're hurting, they're angry, they're upset about something. Then you do get some positive responses, which makes they're happy, they're pleased with what you're doing. But it makes you read people a little more closely to try and understand them better.
So I will come back to this when I go to the next part of your life, but as a part of the planning committee and the sign ordinance committee, is there something that stands out for you as you were transitioning?
It starts back when we were with the Homeowners Association of Twin Creeks. That Homeowners Association had no codes, covenants, and restrictions, so there were no CCRs or fees. We just had a group of people who got together that were concerned about the development that was coming in around us, and we wanted to have some say in it. So we asked the county to send us plans when people were making presentations around us. And that included Danville and San Ramon. There was some in Alamo too, I think the whole of the San Ramon Valley. So we would get the developments, we would contact the developer, and we would talk to them about it. I think the key that I remember from that was when the shopping center in Danville, it was very unique. If you go into that shopping center, it really is quite unique. You don't have buildings around with parking in the center. You have buildings meandering and parking meandering and lots of trees, and it's really a beautiful site. And the one thing that they asked for was to put a McDonald's right on the San Ramon Valley Boulevard. And we all looked at that and said, that is the worst thing you could do for that. You have a very, very classy shopping center, and you're going to put a McDonald's right on San Ramon Valley Boulevard with a drive-through. And they never put a McDonald's there. And it's the best thing they ever did, because I think that would have taken that center down. You can still have a fast food in a lot of different places, but that center was very classy. And to put a McDonald's right on San Ramon Valley Boulevard, right smack in the front, I didn't think, none of us thought it was appropriate.
So that conversation, along with another conversation, so you served on the San Ramon Valley Fire Protection District's board.
Appointed for the first year, and then I ran for election the next 2 times.
And later on, one of your deepest desires was to see the San Ramon portion of the Doherty Valley Regional Fire Authority being annexed to the San Ramon Valley Fire Protection District. How do these conversations evolve, and how do you manage to bring those visions to reality, to fruition?
It doesn't happen quickly. It doesn't happen easily, but you have to persevere and keep working at it. And we started the process, and after I got off the council, other council members finished the process. The Valley Fire District acquired the section of Doherty Valley Fire District.
Yeah.
That section in southern San Ramon, and then they brought in Doherty Valley, which was volunteer fire, and they brought that in. And so what you see now is San Ramon Valley Fire Protection District that covers all of the area from the southern border to of San Ramon to the southern border of Walnut Creek. It takes in Alamo, and then most of it to the east. So
now Mary Lou Oliver, Rick Harmon, and Wayne Bennett, they were 3 of the 6 serving on the Doherty Valley Regional Fire Authority board, along with Joe Covello, who happens to be a part. Now, they were all in support of San Ramon having our own fire protection district. Do you feel there is strength in numbers when you're trying to make certain things happen, or is it easier to set forth a vision and then work with others?
Are you talking about there would be separate fire districts?
Yes.
To try and coordinate communication, to try and coordinate equipment, vehicles, it coordinates. So if you are going to assist in another area, you've got to make sure that everything connects. You find that harder if you have a number of fire districts than if you have one fire district that covers all the area. The thing that was unique about San Ramon Valley Fire is way back in 1920-21, they made a decision to take part of the property tax to benefit the fire district. Now, very rarely do special districts take part of the property tax. It's just they don't think about it, or it hasn't been done. They saw the foresight to do this, and that gave them at least income to run the district without having to worry about where are they going to get the money to buy the trucks and hire the firefighters. And I think that you have to look at more than just a district. You have to look at how it functions, where it gets its funding, its level of education, all of that. You don't just look at, well, this fire district should go with that one, period. You got to look at everything. And I
Yep.
think
Yeah.
what was
No,
done.
that was my question, that it takes a lot of effort, vision, planning to make something like this
Yes.
go through. So what finally, I mean, you served on city council and became mayor, appointed mayor. What made you run for city council? Was this?
Well, I was a part, along with Mary Lou Oliver and Joe Cavello and a whole variety of others, was involved in the incorporation of the city of San Ramon. So I was very involved in the community by meeting people and explaining incorporation and having a successful election. I ended up being Mary Lou's campaign manager. Now, I look back on that and I had no experience to be a campaign manager. It was Mary Lou who won the election, not me that did anything for her. It was an experience for both of us because we did not have the internet. We did not have the computer background or any use of computers. Mary Lou especially had the ability to put together ads that we put in the newspaper. She created them and put them together. I look back on that. It really was fairly simple, but it was also difficult because we had to sort of do it ourselves. So I was involved with Mary Lou and her campaign, but I was on the fire board. So that was an elected position. After 9 years on the fire board, that was 2 terms and 1 appointed year, I knew that I wanted to run for city council. I was at a stage where the city was 89. So the city had a number of years under its belt to get settled. And I ran on knowing that traffic was going to get worse. Nobody wants to hear that. Oh, I'm going to fix traffic. You know, we're not going to have as much traffic in the future. Excuse me? Traffic will do nothing but get worse. It's how you manage it that makes it function. And so I ran for city council and I was so fortunate. The one thing I have to tell you, we had our get together of the people on my committee at Mud's restaurant in the little courtyard. And we had the newspaper there and I must have had about 18 people there. And I went around and I named every single person, one right after the other, as I went around to them. And when I finished, I stopped and I looked and my mouth fell open and I said, I can't believe I remembered everybody's name. They all stopped. And then the next thing I knew, we all applauded and laughed. I couldn't believe that I remembered everybody's name and said it one right after the other.
Would you be able to do that now?
Oh, absolutely not.
It was a special time.
Yeah, but that was wonderful in the group, the people that were so supportive. The fire district, the firemen were out there passing out flyers, were doing whatever they could to help me be successful. I mean, I was very, very fortunate to have support that I did. And then I ran for the 2nd term, but I also knew I was only going to run for 2 terms, that it was okay to let it go, that I loved what I was doing. I had an amazing time and I wouldn't change it for anything in the world, but I also knew I could let it go.